felt like a basketball shoe. It didn't give me that energy response. I think that the fit would have been all sorts of messy. What is going on, everybody? This is going to be a comparison between the Adidas Supernova Prima and the Adidas Adizero Boston 12. Let's get right into it. So starting out with the outsole patterns on both of these shoes, the Adizero Boston 12 has a continental rubber outsole. And as you can see, my pair is looking pretty new. And this has about 30 miles on them. I also have about 30 miles on the Supernova Prima as well. The Adidas Supernova Prima has, I think it's called a Traction Light. It's not continental rubber, that's what Adidas's website says, so it's just a regular outsole. And I would say for performance, traction-wise, I think the Adizero Boston 12 wins, and as for durability-wise, the Adizero Boston 12 wins as well. That continental rubber on the bottom of the outsole of this shoe is just thick, as well as it's very sticky. In dry conditions on the road, which is what I tested the majority of the miles on both of these shoes, the Adizero Boston 12 just felt like a basketball shoe. It was sticking to the ground. It felt very planted, as well as the rubber on the outsole is just super, super thick compared to the Adidas Supernova Prima. Now, with that being said, just because the Boston 12 is better in both traction and outsole durability than the Prima, that does not mean that the Prima is bad whatsoever. If you check out my full review on the Supernova Prima, I said nothing but good things about the outsole as well. It's just not on the level of the Boston 12. In my opinion, this is one of the best outsoles that you can get in a running shoe. Now, moving on to the cushioning of both of these shoes. To go over the specs really quick, we have a full-length Dream Strike Plus midsole on the Supernova Prima, 38 millimeters in the heel, dropping to 30 millimeters in the forefoot, giving it an 8 millimeter heel to toe drop. And as for the Boston 12, we have Light Strike Pro full length on the top layer of the Boston 12, and then Light Strike 2.0 on the bottom layer of the Boston 12, giving it a stack height of 38 millimeters in the heel, so the same as the Prima, dropping to a 31 millimeter stack height in the forefoot, so a 7 millimeter drop compared to an 8 millimeter drop in the Prima. So how did these shoes compare? Well, also just to add on, both of these also have rods in them. I'm not exactly sure if there's a huge difference in what type of rods, like whether that's plastic, nylon, carbon fiber, or whatnot, but I'm just gonna tell you guys how I felt about both of these setups. So plain and simple, I would say that I prefer the Boston 12 setup of Light Strike Pro and Light Strike 2.0 versus the Supernova Prima's Dream Strike Plus midsole. And the reason for that being is, I don't know if it's the rods or just the foam, but this setup from the Boston 12 just felt a little bit more lively. It felt more responsive and willing to pick up the pace, as well as I think the versatility of this setup is a little bit better than the Dream Strike Plus midsole on the Supernova Prima. The Supernova Prima feels a little bit more stable than the Boston 12, which I think is the advantage of this shoe over the Boston 12. But when it comes to picking up the pace and giving that energy return and that light foot feeling of running a little bit faster, I felt that the rods were a little bit less aggressive than the Boston 12, as well as the midsole didn't give me that energy response that I was looking for that the Boston 12 gave me, especially during those faster runs. So some of you guys might be saying, why are you comparing these two shoes? They're completely different shoes. One is more for, up-tempo training and longer, faster runs, whereas this one is maybe more catered towards beginners, which is more of a stable and softer ride. Well, the reason why I'm comparing these two is that the price point on these are both $160. They both have rods, and they're both touted as more premium daily trainers. So for the average consumer, this video hopefully explains the difference between the two. So as I said, if you're looking for a more stable ride and you're looking to run a little bit slower or, easier paced, and you have other shoes to pick up the tempo in, I think the Prima setup is going to be just fine for you. Whereas if you want a more versatile trainer or a little bit more of a fun daily trainer, the Boston 12 is going to be super fun to run in. Again, I prefer the Boston 12 setup over the Primas. Although there's only 1 millimeter of stack height more in the forefoot than the Prima, I did feel that the Boston 12's cushioning in the forefoot was a lot better than the Prima's. It felt a little bit more energized. It also felt like there was a little bit more stack height underfoot, even though technically it's only 1 millimeter, I felt that it made a big difference. Whereas in the heel cushioning department, the Supernova Prima definitely felt a little bit softer and more stable than the Boston 12. So overall, it's up to you on what cushion setup you prefer, as well as what types of runs you're going to be taking out these shoes for. Moving on to the uppers of both of these shoes. And this is maybe where both of them fall apart. So to go over it really quickly, the Supernova Prima has a full-on mesh upper. It's pretty padded. There is a thin gusseted tongue, which I spoke a little bit more about in my full review of the Supernova Prima, whereas the Adizero Boston 12 has this kind of weird textile mesh fuse upper mixed with a little bit of suede. And it's super thin. There's a couple of pads, you know, in the heel, but for the most part, it feels a little bit plasticky and maybe thin. And to be honest, I didn't really prefer either of these on each shoe. I also do want to note for fit, the Boston 12s fit my foot super weird. So I ended up going half a size down, as well as I got the wide version of the shoe. So typically I'm a size 12 regular width. And for the Boston 12, I got a size 11.5 wide. Whereas in the Supernova Prima, I went true to size in a size 12, and I did feel that it fit a little bit big for my foot. Specifically, it felt a little bit long. So both of these shoes, I had a little bit trouble getting the best fit and the best lockdown, but overall, I would say that the Boston 12 was maybe a touch better than the Prima, but that also could be due to me getting a special size in this shoe. Now, if I got a size 12, my true size in the Boston 12, I think that the fit would have been all sorts of messy. I don't think I would have gotten as good heel lockdown. The midfoot and the toe box also would not have fit my foot as well. So it's kind of hard to compare the two when it comes to fit. If fit is a big factor to you, I would recommend checking out other reviews just to see how other people's foot fit in both of these shoes. Now, when it came to how the upper felt on my foot, I would say that I definitely enjoyed the Prima's setup a little bit more. It's a little bit more traditional, a little bit more boring. I know Adidas was maybe trying to up their upper game in this shoe a little bit, but in my opinion, it just did not do super well. I felt like it was pretty well ventilated, but it just felt a little bit too plasticky for my foot, and there were some hot spots on my foot, and it just honestly never really broke in for me, and I felt that it wasn't the most comfortable upper due to it being a little bit more rigid and not really padded. Whereas the mesh upper on the Supernova Prima was a little bit softer on the foot and also conformed a little bit better to my foot, especially once I broke the shoes in. As I said before, heel lockdown on both of these shoes were okay. Once I got my correct size, as well as I did runner's loop in both of these shoes, and then I broke them in, I would say that the heel lockdown was decent. It wasn't the best that I've had in any running shoe, but it was definitely good enough for any type of run. Touching on ventilation really quickly, both of the shoes I would say are average in ventilation. I didn't feel like my foot got too hot and it didn't get too cold. So overall, the feel of both of these shoes, I think obviously running shoes are very personal, so I wouldn't say that one is necessarily better than the other, but for my preferences and what I would put the shoes through, I feel that the Boston 12 is a better option than the Supernova Prima, especially priced at $160. I believe the Boston 12 has been going on sale since it's been out for a little bit longer. I just really love the outsole, the Continental rubber outsole on the Boston 12, as well as the cushioning setup, a little bit better than the Prima. Again, both of the uppers and the fits were a little bit atrocious, if I'm being 100% honest, on both of these shoes, but getting that 11.5 in a wide version for the Boston 12 really helped me get that lockdown that I needed in the shoe. And in my opinion, it's just a little bit more fun of a shoe to run in, and I felt that it was a little bit more versatile than the Prima. The Prima was a great shoe for maybe longer runs, and if I felt like I needed a little bit more stability in the day, but overall, I would say that the Boston 12 was just a better shoe for me. So that's going to wrap up my comparison between these two shoes. Let me know in the comment section down below if you found this video helpful and if you are looking at picking up one of these two shoes. In my opinion, both of these shoes are good shoes. It just depends on what you prefer and what types of runs you're going to do in each shoe. I would just say make sure to try on both of these shoes, as the fit and the uppers are a little bit below average in my opinion. So you want to make sure you have the best fit for your foot in each shoe. So that's going to pretty much wrap up the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for future videos. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.